And this sikha is actually, even though it's titled that it's Yud Shvat, it's actually also connected with our parsha, because it talks about a pasuk that's right away at the beginning of the parsha in the Shir Chumash of Sunday. That over there it says, Bnei Yisrael yotzim Byad Ramah, that the Jewish people were going out of Mitzrayim with an outstretched arm. What's the idea of an outstretched arm? What was their arm, or not outstretched, but raised up? What type of expression does it mean, a raised up arm? So Rashi has an explanation, and there's the way the Golus translates it, and we're mainly going to focus on the Targum Golus, which is actually very similar to what Rashi translates. Golus says the words Breish Glei, with an open head, meaning bepumbi, in a very open manner, in a very, pride, full of pride and openness, not being embarrassed, not being scared, not being on the run, but really in a proud fashion. So you do it, Yetzias HaKodesh al Baal Shem Tov, Bam Mesupar al Shailoses HaMashiach, Eimasai Kal Simar. When is the master, when is Mashiach coming? He asked him, he went up to the mother of Mashiach in Gan Eden, and he asked him, when is he coming? Masa Yava Mashiach. The Tshuvas Mashiach was, Yafutzu Mayasecha Chutza. There's a pasuk that says Yafutzu Mayasecha Chutza, but the Baal Shem Tov was addressing this pasuk to, Mashiach was addressing this pasuk to the Baal Shem Tov, that when your Mayonis, what is your Mayonis? What's the Mayonis of Baal Shem Tov? Mayonis Achsidus, when the Mayonis, the well springs of Chsidus, will spread outward. By the way, many Fabrengens and many Sichos, the Rebbe breaks down, especially with the Skissel Fabrengens, the Rebbe would break down this expression that the Mayonis themselves go, and they go Chutza to the furthest place, and even over there, where they're in the furthest place in Chutza, they're in a way of L'chshiyafutzu, over there itself, they're spreading out further. There's more copies, there's another copy over here. So over there also it's in a way of L'chshiyafutzu. The Rebbe will talk a little bit about it over here, but he's not going to analyze this like in other places. Kol Inyanim Harei Muzim B'Torah. Hatargum Maimer al Pasik in our parsha Bnei Yisrael Yotzim Byad Ramah Breish Glei. So Breish is a very interesting thing. What is Breish? It says as follows: Ubesfarim Namar Shebeteivos Breish, which is Aramaic for at the head. But the word Breish is also Merumas HaBaal Shem Tov, is hinted in the word Breish. Breish or Roshei Teivos, either Rabbi Yisrael ben Sarah or V'gam Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem. So that is the Roshei Teivos that's in the word Breish. Gam Namar Besfarim Shebeteivos Breish Merumas HaRashbi Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Breish Hu Roshei Teivos Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Obviously, in all these cases, the letters are switched around, but it's still the same Roshei Teivos. Gam Arizal is hinted in the word Breish. Rabbi Yitzchak ben Shloimeh. Why? So what's the significance? What happened over there? What's the pasuk talking about? The pasuk is talking about Yidden going out of Golus in a full fashion, in a full way. So he says, Shaidei, Toiris, Rashbi, Arizal, Tovei, HaGeulah. Ubnei Yisrael Yotzim Byad Ramah, meaning Breish Glei, through what the Rashbi teaches us, through what the Arizal teaches us, that's when we have the inyan of the Geulah. Where do we see that the Geulah is connected with the Torah of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and the Torah of the Arizal, Torah Sakabbalah? So he says, like Kedisa beZoyar, Hai Sefer HaZoyar Yafke Bei Min Golus Berachmim, and he translates it over there for the people that don't understand Aramaic. BeSefer HaZoyar Yetzu MaGolus Berachmim. Rashbi v'chein Arizal Harigilu Pnimyus Hatorah Rak liyichidis Geulah v'gam zois b'hagbol. So they didn't have this idea that we spoke about before. First of all, the Rashbi didn't spread the inner part of the Torah to everybody. The Arizal had special Talmidim. Not everybody could come over to the Arizal and hear Yetzias Hatorah. And even the Yetzias Hatorah that the Arizal and Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai taught was only a limited amount of Pnimyus Hatorah. V'ilu Geulah HaMoshiach, Yia kasher Pnimyus Hatorah tizgala ba'ofen shel hafotza davke, which is what the Mashiach told Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, l'kashiyah futzu ma'asacha chutza. L'kashiyah futzu means it's not limited. It's spread out all over. Ubechol makim ad lechutza. And as the Rebbe often explained, that this was the idea of the Frierdikeh Rebbe, this is the idea of the Rabbeim, about spreading it to reach the furthest places. The Rabbeim didn't wait for a person to, let's say, even be holding by being the most highest person and the most learned person. Everybody should be able to learn Chassidus and hear Pnimyus Hatorah. The Inyan Zeh, this idea of Yefutza Mayasecha Chutza, which is crucial for the coming of Mashiach, Heichel Baal Shem Tov shehischel legals Chassidus lakoil leloy hagbolus. Anyone who wanted could come learn Chassidus by the Baal Shem Tov, could come learn Pnimyus Hatorah. So the Rebbe says in his base, but Torah ba hakol b'diuk. Gam ma sha'remes shel Rashbi Arizal shel Baal Shem Tov. Eine beloshna pasakim betargum hu eifoi meduyuk. The Torah could have found a way to hint at the name of the Rashbi and the Arizal and the Baal Shem Tov in the words of Lashon Kodesh itself. Why did the Hashem, in his infinite Chachma, only come up to be meramez in Lashon Targum, in Targum Onkelos language, not in the words of the Pasuk itself? Shutish al Kosev Medabra Yetzias Mitzrayim. El Shema'acher v'Geulah of Mitzrayim he shorish l'chol ha'Golus. Yetzias Mitzrayim he shorish l'chol ha'Geulah, like it's brought down. The Rebbe always brings this down. Nir Moses b'Pasuk zeh shel Yetzias Mitzrayim gam ha'Geulah asida ayidei Mashiach tzidkenu, because this is the beginning, this is the start, and this is the rosh of what's going to take place when Mashiach comes. The Rebbe always used to refer to the pasuk, Ki meit seischa meretz Mitzrayim arenu niflois, that the Yetzia of Golus ha'achron will be a hemshech to and a continuation to Yetzias Mitzrayim. Betargum remuza ha'geula asida begilu yoser. Why? Why dafke in Targum? Tirgum haTorah meloshon hakodesh l'sfas Golus, to a Golus language, l'targum ba mishum shebezman haGolus levinu hakodesh lashon hakodesh. Why did Targum Onkelos come about? If everybody would have spoken Lashon Kodesh, there would have not been any need for Targum Onkelos. The reason why there was a Targum Onkelos was because Yidden were in a Golus state that they needed to have a translation. V'nimtzam sha'idei ha-targum shichot Torah v'Lashon Kodesh gam b'Lashon Choil. What's the idea behind it? It wasn't lowering Chas v'Shalom Torah. One wasn't lessening Torah. My father, Olav Shalom, couldn't understand, how can you learn Gemara in English? How can you explain Gemara in English? It makes no sense. How can you explain Gemara in English? The point is, and some people would look at it, you're using a Talmudic language. My father was in Lubavitcher. That you're using a Talmudic language for Kedusha, the Kinyanim. But the Rebbe's going is the other way. The fact that Torah comes down in Lashon Targum, that's bringing Kodesh into Chol. That's being similar to Shabbos. You have to be Moisef Mechol HaKodesh. You're bringing the Kodesh into the Chol. Because the whole idea of the Geulah Asida is that even Chol will be Kodesh as well. And that's why also it's Yom Shekul Shabbos. The Geulah of Mitzrayim, Noiser Harabe Tokfoi. The difference between when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim to when the Yidden will go out in the Geulah Asida is that after the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, they were still stuck with a little Mitzrayim inside of them. They were still connected to the Ra of Golus Mitzrayim, it was still inside of them. Like the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya Perek Lamed Aleph, why does it say over there, Ki Barach Ha'am? Why was it necessary, Bechlal, that Moshe Rabbeinu would do such things that seemed like trickery? That he told Paroi, we're going to go away of 3 days. He never said, actually, Moshe Rabbeinu never lied. He didn't say that they were only going to go for 3 days and come back, but he said we're going to go derech shloishes yamim. So Paroi looked at it as, they're only leaving for 3 days. But why did he have to do that? The Alter Rebbe asks, especially after Makas B'choiris, if they would have told Paroi, we're going for good, he would have said, Gesunter, hey, go, get out of my hair, I don't want to see you anymore. So why did he do something that Paroi would think to such a degree, Kiboracham, like it says in this week's parsha, that he suspected them, that they escaped, that they fooled him? So the Alter Rebbe explains it wasn't for Paroi. It was for the Yidden. The Yidden had still Mitzrayim stuck to them. If you would have told the Yidden that we're leaving Mitzrayim for good, they wouldn't have wanted to go. It's similar to actually what happened at the time of Golus Bavel, that when Ezra took the Geulah of Bavel back to Eretz Yisrael so that they should rebuild the base of Mikdash, the majority of Yidden remained back in Bavel. They didn't want to leave behind Bavel. They were successful. They were doctors. They were lawyers. They were engineers. They were respected people in Babylonian society. They didn't want to go. Yeah, it's very good. It's very gishmak. The weather is good over here, etc. So the point is, that's why I have to be kibarach ha'am. The Yidden couldn't relate to anything more than a 3-day trip. If you would have told them, we're going out into the Midbar, we're going to Eretz Yisrael, we're going to get the Torah, we're going to stay over there for who knows how long or forever, we're leaving Mitzrayim, they didn't want that. But that was then. Loichem begula sida shal oise az man nemar vasruach atuma avim min haaretz sha'arav atuma ye'olmaz lagamri velochem begula sida lo yitzorich lebroyach, like it says in the pasuk in Yeshayahu ki loy bechipazim tetzeu ubemnusa loy seleichun. There won't be a need to run away. It says that also begashmius. There's a difference between if a person breaks out of prison, so he's got to be on the run because the prison is still there. They could still put him back into prison. But if the prison was destroyed, if the government that held him prisoner was overthrown, so he doesn't have to run. The same difference is between Golus Mitzrayim and the Geulah Sida. Golus Mitzrayim, Klippus were still betokfei, Mitzrayim was still strong, so therefore there had to be an idea of running away. But the Geulah Sida, the Ra won't be Ra anymore, the Klippus won't be there anymore in a helm and alakus. Kiyim v'ro kol basar yachtov shagama basar agash mikan lamata yira lakus b'mochash. And that's why we have it in the words Breish Glei. L'cheiner mazim shmoisem shal Rashbi Arizal Baal Shem Tov. Davke betargum ki toirasa mi ba'ofen shal yafutzu ma'asecha chutzam loy libroyach ma'achutz. Ela adrava lahafitz shamas amayon shal Pnimyus Hatorah. Don't be scared of the outside. Deal with the outside. Bring Torah, bring mitzvahs, bring ma'asecha, bring Pnimyus Hatorah even outside. Kishem shatargum maybe lashon kodesh v'Torah v'toich hachoil v'achutzam shaydei zet tiagula asidam. The same thing. They're starting from the Rashbi and then going to the Arizal. But mainly with the Baal Shem Tov, that's where you had the ultimate expression of what the Geulah Sida is about, bringing Kodesh into Chayil. So then the Rebbe writes that Yehudi Kosovli, this is more like from a Fabrengen, where the Rebbe speaks more like Fabrengen style, not a Lekutei Sicha style. So the Rebbe was saying by Fabrengen, this is from Fabrengen from Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud Beis. So the Rebbe said, a Yid wrote to the Rebbe, people used to write different ideas and concepts to the Rebbe. From time to time, the Rebbe by Fabrengen used to say, someone wrote to me and somebody told me such and such. So over here also the Rebbe, sometimes the Rebbe accepted and sometimes the Rebbe didn't like what people wrote to him and mentioned it in public. But here the Rebbe accepted it. Yehudi Kosovli, Roshei Teivos Barish, Merumaz Gam HaRebbe Baal Hailula. Reish is Rebbe, Yud is for Yosef Yitzchak, Beis is for Ben, Shin is Shalom Duber, V'chein Stern Asara, Eimar Rebbe is also Merumaz in the word Shin. Af Shebederech Chal, Ein Lahamtzi Roshei Teivos or Ramazim. The Rebbe is not a fan of making up, and we mentioned this before, Gematrias, Roshei Teivos, unless the Rebbe says, if we see that it's going to bring to a Cyrus, if it's going to inspire someone by finding this Gematria, finding this Remez, and so on, so then the Rebbe was encouraged it or accepted it and went with it. So the same thing over here. In other words, the Rebbe is saying like this. It is correct that part of the process of going out of the Golus is with the Frierdikeh Rebbe. So if you find, for me, in the pasuk that speaks about going out of Golus, a hint for the Frierdikeh Rebbe, so it makes sense. So it doesn't make a difference to me if it says it in a sefer or does somebody wrote it in a letter. That's fine. I remember the Rebbe once even went further. That the Rebbe once discussed about a weird phenomenon that once used to go on, going chain letters, and they used to someone used to write you a letter, and he said, if you don't pass on this letter to 10 people, it's going to be a terrible, things are going to come upon you, whatever. Somehow or other, this got to the Rebbe. I wouldn't be surprised if some old lady wrote to the Rebbe, I'm scared, I don't know what to do, I got this letter in the mail. People used to write all different problems to the Rebbe. He said, I don't know what to do, I'm terrified, I got this letter, whatever.
Now it's coming to WhatsApp.
Now comes to WhatsApp. So the Rebbe said, since from everything in the world you need to learn out the positive, so you should do it in the matters of Torah and mitzvahs. You should write to 10 people a letter, but not in a threatening manner. Not in, if you don't do this, it's this and terrible thing going to happen. But if you do this and you spread this idea about Yiddishkeit, I don't remember exactly what the Rebbe said to write over there, but a concept in Yiddishkeit that you're going to get brachas and it's going to be beneficial for you, and you should spread this to 10 other people and so on and so forth. So again, the Rebbe took something that was a shtus, that was literally narishkeiten, and he transformed it and made it for a tool for Kedusha. Anyway, back to it inside. Kol hanhage v'derech ba'olam, ma toiv limtzei dugmasim al kopanim, dugma rechoike binyane Torah, ubinyaneinu, yesh loimer shval derech divrei Rambam bagdamasi lepirish hamishnayis, al esrig and hadas. The Rambam says an interesting thing about the idea that we know that on Sukkot we need to have an esrig, and we need to have a hadas, we need to have a lulav. It doesn't say openly in the Chumash you should take an esrig. What does it say? Shagemara dereshes oisam ma'apasik, that since it says in the pasuk creates hadar, so they have a whole explanation. Hadar means hadar bilani mishana shana, or hadar from the word it's has a hidur and a certain beauty. So the Rebbe says like this. The Rambam says it doesn't mean that before the Gemara knew this drasha, they had no idea what an esrig was. What? Till the times of the Gemara, whatever it was, 1,000 years or 1,500 years from the times of Har Sinai, they had no idea what an esrig was. All of a sudden the Gemara came up and said what an esrig was. It didn't work that way. She'ein pirish hadvarim, she'ein pirish hadavar, she'oloi hadrashes, loy hayenu yoidim, mai kavanas prietz hadar v'cholu. Elo shebnei Yisrael b'chol hadoiris, yadu b'kabbalah, Moshe Rabbeinu doirach hadoir, mahim dald minim. Elo kivin she'akoil harim rumas b'toira, chipsu chachamim u'matzu remaz al kach, mipsuki ha'toira. So the same thing that Rebbe is saying over here. That the Baal Shem Tov and that the Frierdikeh Rebbe are the ones that are bringing about the Geulah is something that's a given. And then you can even find for it a remez in the Torah in the words Breish Glei. But it's not pshat that, without this pasuk, we don't know that that's the case. There's enough reason and enough svara to go ahead and say that the Frierdikeh Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov and the Rashbi and the Arizal are the ones that bring about and lead us to the Geulah. Or Baal Shem Tov, that's who it began. Because the Rashbi and the Arizal had certain limited Talmidim, and even what they taught their Talmidim was very limited. Baal Shem Tov halach mi'ir le'ir mikfar lekfar u'masar inyanim shel Torah achsidus gam la'anoshim pshutim b'yosim. Ela kedei she'anoshim ha'pshutim yuchlu lahasig advarim hisim Baal Shem Tov es inyane achsidus lefi erkam b'sipurim b'izgami Torah ksarim v'adoyma kishebetoicham chavuyim b'rozin v'rozin derozin. And we see actually that the Rebbe a lot of times will bring a short one line or two lines, a paragraph of the Baal Shem Tov, and explain very deep things that are over there the Baal Shem Tov says. So in other words, the Baal Shem Tov had to keep it very small. and it's for people that weren't the greatest Talmidei Chachamim. So they should be able to receive it. But in those words were hidden the deepest secrets of the Torah. Hanhagas HaMagid Mezrich Talmud U'Malam Mekoyim Shal Baal Shem Tov Hoysam Loi Machsidus Begolui more than the Baal Shem Tov did. Loi Aidei Habashasam Belevushim Shal Sipurim V'Chadoyim. But it was limited who he shared it with. Aval Zeh Rak LeTalmida V'Gdolei Torah Aval Loi LeKulam. The Mezrich HaMagid did not speak Chassidus Begolui to everybody. Hanhagas had more Azakin Talmid U'Malam Mekoyim Shal Magid. Rabbi Seinu Nisienu U'Malam Mekoyim Hoysa lahalbish in yon chsidus beseichel, shegam seichel anushi yuchel lahasigas Torah chsidus. V'zeu achidus shel chsidus Chabad, legalus chsidus l'chol b'nei Yisrael, loy rak lichidus Geulah shayachim ozem mitzad Goydel nishmasam mitzad avidasam. Ubemyuchad, when did it start? Nasa came la'achar Geulah Sitas Kislev, v'idei kach Godol v'yisrachev chug loimde mayonas Torah chsidus. The God limit Shemeva de Maisan Hag Chassidus. In other words, there's two aspects. There's Torah Chassidus and there's Dark Chassidus. He's going to talk about also soon in the Sikha. There is what Chassidus teaches for the mind, and then what Chassidus teaches how we're supposed to act. And both of these things, the Alter Rebbe and the Rabbeim communicated in a much broader fashion, so it should be able to be understood by everybody. Mikol Makim, even then. Loi hoysa lekulam gisha noicha kol kach l'Torah chassidus. Shekein rak bali seichel mesugolim hayu lahavnes Torah chassidus. Darke chassidus hayu amnam avur kulam gam lanoshim pshutim. Aval es Torah chassidus yachlu lahavin rak bali seichel levad. Gam benegel lepirsum chassidus hayu chevdel ben chassidim she'enam chassidim chug chassidim amnam halach v'gadol. The Rebbe is going to say, but by the Frierdikeh Rebbe, these distinctions and differences between those that understood more and those that understood less, or those that were called Chassidim and those that were part of the Chassidus camp and those that were not part of the Chassidus camp, started to fall away. Darkish HaRebbe Bal Heilula Haisa Loimer Chassidus Lekulam Leloi Kolak Bolus. Bechol Mokim Elo Vigia HaRebbe Dibur Chassidus Mebli Lischachim Mamokim Chassidei Eloi. I was listening tonight to a Ketab of Fabrengen where the Rebbe says one of the first projects the Rebbe did the Frierdikeh Rebbe did as soon as he left Russia, he came to Riga in Latvia and he established a class of girls to study Chassidus, which had never, ever in Lubavitch been done. It was always a matter of trickle down that the husbands learned Chassidus, not even so, and eventually Bachrim started learning Chassidus by the Rebbe Rashbi and Chizmimim. But to establish a class of girls that are learning Chassidus, this is the first project or one of the first projects that Frierdikeh Rebbe did when he left Russia. When he came to Riga, he right away established that. The whole idea of making like separations, these people can learn Chassidus, these people can't. These people are Chassidim, these people are not Chassidim. That type of differentiation, that type of distinction started falling away by the Frierdikeh Rebbe. You say to me, Harebi ishkiach koyach miyuchad shagam elu shechasel amadayim b'kiyam ha-mitzvahs yilmadu Torah Chassidus. That's why the Frierdikeh Rebbe published, it says the Tanya, he was the first one to publish a Tanya in Yiddish. That was originally published serial-wise in the Kriya V'Akdusha, that was not just read by Chassidim, not necessarily read just by Fruma Yidden, to be able to make available Chassidus even for those that not necessarily are keeping Torah mitzvahs. Hu hisem v'ivsher hafonas achsidus gam la'elu shechasar atzlam yediyam ad shafilo elu she'enim mevinim lashon ha'kodesh v'afilo lo Yiddish tziva Rebbe the Targum avurim chassidus b'saf ha'medina. In the original Sikha in Yiddish over here, it mentions French, for example, that the Frierdikeh Rebbe had chassidus translated into French for Yidden that spoke French, had no knowledge of lashon kodesh, had no knowledge even of Yiddish. They should be able to appreciate chassidus even in their own language. ובדרך אפשר יש לומר שבזה דומה הנהגת הרב להנהגת הבעל שם טוב. שניהם שייכו בתורה חסידות באופן המעשי לכולם, גם לאנשים פשוטים. וכן הפיצו שניהם חסידות בכל החוגים ללא הגבלות. Shara b'seinu kirvu lekulam. Gam lanoshim pshutim. Es ha'alicha v'chai dark achsidus. V'ila Baal Shem Tov Rebbe nosnu l'chol b'nei Yisrael loirak as darkei achsidus. Darkei achsidus, everybody can do. Anybody can put on a gartel. You don't have to be a big Talmud Chacham to put on a gartel. But when it comes to learning chassidus, over there you might make distinction. He says, this person knows more, this person knows less. That distinction started falling away. Let's not separate, and let's not say that this person can learn chassidus, this person can't learn chassidus. So he said, Geulah of Moshiach Rebbe nosnu l'chol bnei Yisrael loirak es darkei achsidus kim gam es teures achsidus. Ka'amur haya Baal Shem Tov masim malbish in yonech chassidus b'sipurim v'kedoimim shayim mesaper an lashim pshutim u'b'pizgam me'toira k'tzarim. Amnam hayu b'pizgam me'atoira v'afilu b'sipurim rozen de rozen ach ha'noshim ha'pshutim koltu begolu yas sipurim oyes ha'pizgam ha'kotzer v'lo yas toichna ha'pnimiyus hasoidus ha'chavuyim b'pizgam ha'b'sipurim. It's like the Rebbe says that when a ben chamish l'mikra learns that Hashem took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim bezroya netuya, b'yod chazaka bezroya netuya. No, a 5-year-old imagines in their imagination that a big arm came out min hashamayim and took the Yidden out. Or it says, V'esa eschem al kamfi nisharim. He imagines in the mind a physical eagle that the Yidden are riding on the eagle outside of Mitzrayim. So the Rebbe says, obviously, even though it's not meant to be taken literally, and it's a mashal for how the Eibishter took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, but on the level of the Ben Chamish L'Mikra, that's his truth, and that's correct for the Ben Chamish L'Mikra. He's not understanding it wrong. He's not understanding it to the full depth, but he's not understanding something wrong. So the same thing, the Baal Shem Tov said things in very simple language, in stories and mishalim, but in those stories and mishalim, there were very deep things. Avla Rebbe, as the Frierdikeh Rebbe, as opposed to the Baal Shem Tov, Geulah is Torah's Chassidus ba'ofen shekulam yuchlu lahavin oisa. The Chassidus itself, to be able to understand not just the external part, the stories, and they don't understand the depth behind it. The Frierdikeh Rebbe gave it over in such a way that they should be able to understand the depth as well. Hu amnam bita oisam binyanim kalim avaisis pshutims. He actually explained it in simple language. As for example, what a lot of times, what one of the first types of chassidus that we learn in Lubavitcher Yeshiva is the Sefer Amorim Kuntreisim. Very, very simple Pashat Mamorim, because these are Mamorim that he tried to address that everybody should be able to understand. Not that they didn't take it as stories, and they didn't take it as just like simple things. Something of the secrets they got also. Here is the point that it has to come mamish close. The process started with the Rashbi. It continued with the Arizal, even with the Baal Shem Tov, even with the other Rabbeim. But when you have to be mamish by Biyas Mashiach, then you have to come to the ultimate level of V'nigla Kavod Hashem. You have to come out to the full revelation. Mashiach harayavi begoli l'chol Yisrael. So the Rebbe always says that the preparation for something has to be similar to that thing. If Mashiach is going to be begoli to all Yidden, so the way how we do things in preparation for Mashiach has to be a gilui of his Torah and what Mashiach is about to every single person. Kach shagam achon l'kach. Hafotas Torah Sachsidus Srichalias Lekol Yisrael Ba'ifin Goli. Harebe Hoya Zeshenot Las Evna Toivish Bekeser Hamelach Shabbat Luya Kol Chashivas Hakeser Kamash La Yedua that we always talk about in Teskislev. Ve'fitza Adla Anglis V'Tzorfatzis V'Chulu. Maybe here's where he mentioned English and French. I thought he mentioned it earlier in the Sikha. Hari Muven Eifoi. Sharebe Hoya Zeshenosas Achona Achroina Mamish Legula Amitis. Shehi kefi sharambam poisik bebirur ketzad yetchilas talich v'talich seder ha'geula. Betchila yiyah, he's quoting the Rambam. Yamid melchem beis David. Hoige betoira. V'oisig mitzvahs ke David David. Kfi Torah shebeksava, Torah shebalpem. V'yakov kol Yisrael leilach ba. What's the ba? Derech ha'toira u'lechazik bidka. V'yilcha milchames Hashem chulum. V'yatzliach v'yivna ha'mikdash v'mkoimei. That's the ultimate goal. The ultimate purpose is to have the Geulah of the Eibusher down here, that everybody will serve Hashem. Like we mentioned before, Geulah Byad Ramah Breish Glei, Moshiach Tzidkeinu b'Karav Mameh.